Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be here with you in wonderful Berlin. Maybe we could kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible film, The Lost Boys. What can people expect when they watch it?
Well, they can expect a love story that we try to be the most lyrical and Shakespearean as possible.
And can you tell us a bit about what the initial inspiration was for the story and why this was the one you wanted to tell for your feature debut?
So I think there is two elements that really led me there. It was first, it was my cousin when I was a teenager that was actually um, taken to those places, and I really developed, I think, a sense of critique about those places, and they're not really. I felt that they were not really working. I felt, society and my family having a very despising look on them, and at the time I felt like, he was incarcerated for very minor facts, like very minor things, and I felt okay, it could have been me. I really felt that very strongly. And then there's Jean Genet, who's a French writer who wrote about prison and homo-erotic stories set there, and they're very free and they're without any shame and they're very revolutionary, not only for the time but even now. And it really, I think, helped me shape some sort of desire that I couldn't find anywhere else in society or in films. These novels really shaped me as a man and as a person, as a desiring person. So when I was, writing, I think I channeled those two elements and make it into a film.
And tell us a bit about your wonderful cast with Camille and Julianne and how you discovered them and how you worked with them to tell your story.
We discovered them in a very like a normal way. Like they had agents already. They had already done some stuff. So when I saw them, when I was very struck by their ability to display codes of masculinity that were alternative, and that's what I was really looking for these characters. Khalil is really a fan of Kurt Cobain and Jim Morrison and David Bowie, and those people really challenge the norms of the genre. How you present yourself as a man, and I knew that I had something there, like I can work with. Um, we did rehearsals, and during the rehearsals I took them for one day in a youth correctional facility where they could meet actually the kids that were there. It was very good for them because they could have new stories, new feelings. They could see how they were behaving physically, blah blah blah. So it was a big opportunity for us to actually enter there. I did some immersions. I did 2 times a 1 month immersion there. We had the authorization for the Ministry of Youth. It was very a big chance, and it really helped the script to be written for me. Yeah.
And in the making of it, what were some of the moments that might have been most challenging along the way, but equally some of the highlights?
I think the highlights definitely was the family that we created, because we spent 90% of the shooting into this correctional facility that's actually real. We had other kids really imprisoned on the other buildings around us, so it created for us a sense of respect, and we were very honored to be accepted there. And then it created a very goodwill atmosphere and very hardworking, dedicated atmosphere. We were also really like a family, because the movie is about creating your family, creating your bond of love that can lead you to freedom, to actual freedom. What was challenging, I think, was actually we were close to these kids, so it was a big responsibility for me to not mess up for them too. The editing process was a bit challenging because we were really confronting ourselves with other queer stories that were already made, and we took very big decisions in the editing to really, for example, put the first kiss in the very beginning of the movie, for it to be not a question anymore, and to focus on the conflicts of love, which are betrayal, longing, missing, passion and happiness, but also like sadness. So and all these conflicts that for me were actually missing from those queer stories that I could have seen, that were more focused on inhibition or shame, and the whole trajectory of the character, the whole arc would be to overcome this shame and to have like an highlight in the end. But we really wanted to reverse this and to create a love story that had as many conflicts as the other ones. I was like, what happens when you actually go above your shame? You have all the conflicts that go with love, and there are so many. So why not focus on that now? And I think we had a very beautiful premiere yesterday with a young audience that was very, love giving and very generous. And I felt, okay, like they're ready. This generation is ready to hear those new stories about that and new characters.
And I guess in that sense, do you feel like you were trying to push a boundary of some sort? And how do you think that we've kind of made progress in terms of telling queer stories on screen? And perhaps we did get stuck in a rut there for a while, and we actually kind of have to keep, telling stories from new angles in order to not kind of be repeating the same stereotypes, if you like, or kind of perpetuating the same misconceptions about different people's lives.
It's a very good question. There was this beautiful documentary called The Celluloid Closet that's from '95, and it's about the history of queerness in the cinema. And actually, the movie talks about that the history of cinema actually mirrors civil rights movements. So whether the gays had more and more rights, you could have more and more stories about that, and more open, and less about the trauma, less about suicidal characters. It was freeing, society, and I think the steps we've made in the civil society really reflect themselves on what we do today. I think the Me Too movement was a huge step, weirdly, and not weirdly at all, because it challenged behavior of men and their oppressive behavior, not only towards women but towards also the other minorities. And I think it opened the gate for the racial issues, the homophobic issues, to draw the line and say, do not, you don't have the right to oppress us anymore. You as a man were constructed in a social way that you need to deconstruct now, and you need to look at how you were brought up. And I think those things that the man and society changes, actually we are taking the fruits of this more and more. And you have those also I think Ryan Murphy, and in the shows like Pose or shows like Euphoria on HBO really challenged us also as directors to not go under this line. Like Euphoria is a queer story between Zendaya and a trans woman. How could that happen? How could that happen that this story touched so many people? It was very, very well sold. Like everybody watched that, everybody loved that. So when this was out, like I was in the finishing line of my writing. I knew it helped me to like, okay, I can get rid of this question of this shame thing, or this thing that it's from the past. Now there's a Euphoria. We can't do anything less.
And I think what's interesting is this kind of contradictions in the film, because it's, finding love in what ostensibly is a very hostile environment, and the conflict of what freedom means, because is it freedom to be out in society, or it's the freedom to love who you want? So what do you think maybe some of the themes are, and why was it interesting maybe to play with those tensions?
So prison is actually for me was a prison metaphor for masculinity, and how masculinity can be a prison for those boys who are not allowed to cry, who are not allowed to be tender. And I wanted to portray kids that were actually not in competition against each other, but actually in solidarity, how they could help each other, how they could uplift each other, how also they can create resistance towards the institution together. The question of freedom is actually the question that the character asks himself in the beginning of the movie. Like, would I be free if I was out in my apartment that I'm going to be given without anyone to love, without anyone to love me? Aren't we more trapped in the loneliness? You know, so as William arrives, a gate opens of freedom. Like, okay, I can be free because I can follow my desire. It's also, I think, a call for the audience to actually follow the heart, follow the desire, because it's the only way to be free.
And what does it mean to you to have your film playing here at Berlin, like you said, in front of such a diverse audience? Feels like Berlin Film Festival really attracts, you know, a really discerning, really kind of cinephile, you know, kind of public. Maybe in
It
contrast to other
does
festivals.
exactly because we have a real audience here, and I think the generation section is a very nice section because you have those young audiences that are invited and then are very generous. I think it's a movie about love and freedom, and Berlin is a very free city. I think so. It's a very cool to be here. It's a festival that I adore. I love the films that come out there, so it was a big honor. I'm very thankful for the programmation committee, and it's been 3 days of pure happiness. Also because we are now with the kids. We brought them here. We were in a big Airbnb together. We really had a quality time, very joyful.
And what we're saying there about LGBTQ plus film, do you see that there are still boundaries that do need to be pushed? Are there taboos still to be broken? And what might be some of the other filmmakers you see out there that are trying to kind of push that needle a bit?
Yeah, I think on the trans issue, it needs to be challenged more. We need new stories told by trans people, and I had a screening 2 days ago of Orlando, the movie of Paul Preciado, and he was there, and you know, he's a trans philosopher. It's his first movie, and I was crying like a baby in the end because I felt like, okay, this is happening. There's a trans director, and there were all these trans actors on stage talking about emancipation, talking about joy. And Paul Preciado said, I don't like those. I mean, he needed to make a tale about emancipation rather than oppression. And I think this is exactly what happened with the gay cinema. Like, we stopped having characters that were only stuck in their gay condition, and more we have characters that desires that have real storylines, that have real leading roles. I'm thinking about A Knock on the Cabin from Shyamalan,
Yes.
and you have like these gay dads, and it's not a question anymore. And I was like, thank you, Shyamalan.
Yeah. And just very quickly, can you tell us what you might be working on next? Do you already have an idea for your next film?
Yeah, I'm working on two scripts at the moment. I'm Tunisian Jewish. I think I'm might be, you know, I'm writing on that. I've just been back from a 1 month trip in Israel, and I think there's so much to talk about what's happening there. Also, being Tunisian in Israel is a big thing. And I'm writing also something else more urban, set in Europe, in Paris, more about rebellion. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Really enjoy the
Thank
rest of the time here
you.
in Berlin. Thanks.